one of the strangest things I read about me was said by Dee Snider, who in his book said, "I believe that Tom Werman personally destroyed our album."
The point that you made in the book was like with Motley Crue and Cheap Trick. If they were so disgruntled, why would they keep you around for 3 albums?
True. And his replacement said, "Werman, what have you been doing here for 6 years?" And I said, "Well, I tried to sign Kiss, Rush, and Leonard Skinner, and Don passed on all of them." We actually had to sign an agreement between the band and me not to talk shit about each other. She said, "Dad, at school, nobody messes with me because, they say, don't fuck with Julia. Her dad's tight with the crew." The only time that really happened was with Every Rose Has Its Thorn. The first time I heard it, I said, "Oh boy, we we have a hit single. We're not going to take it."
Yep.
I didn't think that was particularly strong. I admit it. If they had had a hit album instead of a stiff, maybe he wouldn't be dead today. Twisted Sister, Motley Crue, Cheap Trick, Poison. They all wanted to be harder and louder, and I wanted them on the radio.
The air metal guru from Warren to Crew. The air metal guru. Never forget Charlie too.
Hey, it is an honor to welcome Tom Werman to the show. Tom Werman, the famed A&R man and producer who worked with some of my favorite bands and on some of my favorite albums of all time, including Cheap Trick, Motley Crue, Dokken, Poison, Kix, LA Guns, and McQueen Street. And he did the music for the Rockstar movie before running a successful bed and breakfast and becoming an author of the fantastic book Turn It Up, My Time Making Hit Records in the Glory Days of Rock Music, which I got last week and I read over 3 days. I could not put this thing down. With that, Tom Werman, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me. What a great promo.
I just had Anthony Corder on the show from Tora Tora last week. You worked on their 1994 album. I told him I was going to be interviewing you, and he just raved about how awesome it was working with you.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah,
And I'm going to ask you about that because I do have a question about that album.
yeah.
And Derek Welsh from McQueen Street, who I interviewed earlier in the channel's history. I texted him, said I'm going to be talking to you, and he is another one who just raved about his experience with you. He said, "Please tell Tom that I said hi." So Anthony Corder and Derek Welsh say hi.
It's so refreshing to hear a positive response from one of the people I work with, because there are 2 or 3 really negative ones that have, that it's too late now. But
Right.
it's always nice for someone to thank a producer. They don't do it frequently.
And I'm going to ask you about that because it's baffling how a few people have, had negative things to say after
Yeah.
having some of the biggest success in their career with you as their producer. I did want to. So in 2023, you put out this book. Like, what made you think, hey, you know what? Now is the time to kind of put everything down on paper and tell everybody Tom Werman's story?
Well, it was a little bit of an unusual career path,
Yeah.
from how I was brought up.
Mhm.
And I wanted to memorialize the era. The what I think was rock and roll from 1954 to sometime in the 90s, and it's over for me. I haven't really. I have to admit, I haven't been seeking new music.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some good stuff out there. My son is an A&R man. Uh, and he has he's I'm not sure exactly what he had to do with Dijon, but this is what I'm told is a very big name.
Okay.
We may go to I may go with him to a show in Boston. Um, I like to write, and something would occur to me. I'd have a memory, and I'd just jot it down,
Mhm.
and maybe I'd write for 15 minutes.
Mhm.
And one time I came across a very snarky and mean review of me
Yeah,
from a guy who never met me.
yeah.
And I'm saying, wow, gee, this happened again. Okay. So I wrote it was a blog, popdose.com. And I wrote the guy who was the chief of the blog, or the editor. And I said, can I respond to this guy? I have no idea who he is or why he said these things. So I kind of eviscerated him, and I never got an answer. But the editor said, "Hey, our readers really loved your your response. Would you like to write more for us?" So I wrote 18 chapters
Mhm.
for 18 episodes of the blog, and then I said, I could knit these together. And they were all kind of autobiographical and kind of like the book. Autobiographical at the beginning and more informative, I think, at the end about the era and how it worked, because it was just the most wonderful time that I had. I went from hell to heaven overnight by changing jobs and getting a job at Epic Records. There was no paying position in the world that for me could have been better. I was just a pig in shit, as they say.
Um, and you talked about that writing that blog in your book,
Yes.
but also you didn't start off, and you kind of alluded to it right now. You started off in the corporate business world. How
Yeah.
how did you go from that? You had an MBA, you were educated. How do you go from this corporate job that many people would think is true success to going to work in A&R for Epic Records?
Well, I was pretty suicidal at the advertising agency. I was very unhappy. I had no idea what kind of work I'd be doing.
Yeah,
I thought advertising, cool. I can make things up. I can do jingles and
yeah,
wrong department.
yeah.
I was in the account group. I was working on Procter and Gamble accounts, Jif peanut butter and Gain detergent. I wasn't happy. I really didn't know what I was doing. And I'd been in bands, and I had a really good band. In college, rock and roll was in my head all the time. I had a kind of a encyclopedic memory for music. And I said, damn, I was desperate. So I wrote a letter to Clive Davis. Uh, it was just kind of cheeky, but at that time, people were buying records like food,
Yeah.
and they just couldn't make them fast enough, so they were hiring. And the fact that I had a job and was asking for a job made a difference. I didn't say I want to come to work for you as my first job, or I was fired, or I'm currently between jobs,
Yeah.
you know. So it looked better, and the letter is in the book,
Yep. Yes,
and
it is.
that's how it happened, really. Just wonderful good luck.
You and you mentioned this band that you were in, and one of the things that I was shocked about, did you say that your band had a chance to audition for Brian Epstein, who was the
That's right.
Beatles manager?
That's right. Yeah.
So what
We,
happened?
we were playing at a private party with a lot of important people there. I think it was at Vincent Sardi's house. Sardi he had a big restaurant in New York, very celebrity oriented. And we took a break, and this guy walked up and said, "Hi, I'm Nat Weiss, and I'm Brian Epstein's attorney in New York.
Yeah.
Uh, you guys are good, and I think Brian would like to hear you. And I said, having been under the yoke of convention, I said, well, look, let's just say we have a hit record. We would have to go on tour, right? He said, that's what they usually do. And I quote, and I said, listen, we got Vietnam here. You know, if we leave school, we will be drafted.
Ah,
And I said, we have a student deferment. My parents would be, they'd have heart attacks. Um, we can't, we can't do it.
okay.
And that was it. And I spoke for the band, which I shouldn't have done, but
Right.
that was that. That was that.
Do you, I mean, was that band writing originals? Do you feel like they had a chance to become
Oh,
something?
we were very good. We really were very good.
Yeah,
But we did not do any original material. Almost probably 90% of what we did was Beatles, Birds, and Stones.
right.
But we were good.
Yeah,
And we loved it. We had so much fun.
yeah.
Um, but that was that. And then I had another band when I was in grad school. But then, I was brought up to be a trained
Yeah,
sheep.
yeah.
So, then I became the black sheep.
Right. Were your parents, because were your parents like, what are you doing when you made the career? I mean, obviously you're out of the house, but I mean, were they like, you're messing up
Well,
doing
my mother, a Wellesley girl, said, Tommy, you're throwing your life away.
Okay.
You're working with the dregs of society or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, in part, she was right about that. But I mean, she was so upset that she took walks with a friend of ours who was a therapist.
Right.
It was one of those, dear, where did we go wrong moments. And I felt badly for them. But eventually, while she was still alive, she was able to talk about my son, the vice president at CBS.
Right.
So, yeah, hey, cool.
They came around. Right.
It was
Um,
good.
you start doing A&R for Epic. You get a big signing. You sign REO Speedwagon, I
Yeah,
think in 1970.
right.
But what, again, shocking from the book, you got to pick up the book, are the three bands that you wanted to sign, but your supervisor kind of put the kibosh on it. And people, if you haven't read the book, you'll be shocked when you hear, I mean, can you tell us like the stories about these three bands that you wanted to sign?
Well, yeah, REO was first, and
Yeah,
that was good, and they're still on the road. They're a
yeah,
big money maker for Epic.
totally.
Then I found a band that I was interested in called Wicked Lester, and I went to their sessions. They were down at Electric Lady, and that was nice for me to be able to go in and hang out there in the evenings. And I signed them, and they were very pop. There were about six or seven of them. A lot of harmonies, very pop.
Right.
And then they broke up before we could put the album out. So we shelved the album, just put it in the vault.
Right.
And we had purchased the album. It was almost finished when we signed it. It was called a master purchase. And they called me maybe I don't know, a month or two later and said, listen, we formed another band. We have a three-piece. Could you come and see us? So I happened to bring my boss. I said, we own these guys.
Yeah.
Really. We own their record. So we went to a rehearsal and they were very, very good in terms of commercial. I wasn't in love with the songs, but they were very catchy. And they were all in whiteface. and kind of, Marvel Comics thing. And it was Gene and Paul and a drummer. And they were very, very good. And we went downstairs and onto the sidewalk afterwards, and he said, "What the fuck was that?" And I could not argue with him because I didn't have the clout.
Right.
I didn't want to argue and have him say, "What what kind of taste? You actually want to sign this crappy band?" So we didn't sign him, and you know the rest. Um, Eventually, Neil Bogart bought the album that we shelved and probably destroyed it. I don't know, because it would have been very embarrassing for Gene and Paul. And so he passed on Kiss. Next, I think it was next, Ray Daniels, this manager from Toronto. He sent me something, and I listened to it. I called him up. I said, "I'd love to see this band." I flew to Toronto, and we saw Rush in a high school auditorium in one of the suburbs of Toronto, and they were great,
Yeah.
and they were artistic, and they were, it would have been a very nice signing because it was kind of the opposite of Kiss.
Yeah.
It was thoughtful music, and he didn't like it.
Okay.
So he passed on Rush. Then I got a visit from Alan Walden, who was Phil Walden's brother, and Phil was the manager for the Allmans, and I think headed their label. Anyway, Alan came up to my office, wonderful man, Southern gentleman, young guy, very nice, and he played me this tape, and it had Freebird on it.
Yeah. Yep.
And I said, "Oh, I'd love to see this band." I went down to Georgia, saw the band, went back up to New York, and said, "Don, you gotta come and see this band.
Yeah.
I think, we should sign this band." So again, my boss, he was a great guy.
Yeah.
He had different taste.
Yeah.
And we flew to Nashville, and they were playing at a place called the Exit Inn. We saw the whole set. It had "Give Me Three Steps," and it had "Free Bird," and it had a Whiskey Man. No, not Whiskey Man. That was Molly Hatchet.
Right.
Anyway, so after the show, we walked through the parking lot, and he said, "Good band, no songs."
Right.
Yeah. So it was that. So that was the three, and then
Yeah.
he left for another label.
Yeah.
And his replacement said, "Werman, what have you been doing here for 6 years?" And I said, "Well, I tried to sign Kiss, Rush, and Leonard Skinner, and Don passed on all of them." And he said, "Is there anyone you're interested in now?" And I said, "Yeah, Ted Nugent." Nobody knew anything about Ted Nugent,
Right.
and there was no politics involved at the time. I want to make that very clear.
Right.
Anyway.
And this random question, would you have been, after Kiss blows up, would you have been interested in having the label release, if you hadn't sold it, the Wicked Lester album? Because maybe you get all these Kiss fans to come, or was that not a consideration?
They didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
I think probably because it was a cheesy move,
Sure.
to take advantage of that, and here's what we did, and we didn't even realize, and there were just too many negatives, I think, about that, and I think that was right.
Sure.
That was,
Did you ever get the Don Ellis was your boss who vetoed Skinner, Kiss, and Rush? Did you ever get to talk to him later and say,
No.
"Dude, you messed up"?
No, I didn't, and I wouldn't have wanted to confront him in any way, It just wasn't. I was off, moving out of the office into the studio.
Yeah.
And when Ted exploded, I became a producer.
Yeah.
And I never saw Don. I think he went to RCA as the head of A&R there. He's a very bright guy, very funny guy, a good guy.
Yeah.
But he was more a Boz Scaggs, Steve Miller, Ben Sidran even fan, and not a rocker.
Sure.
And he was older too.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's
Yeah.
the deal. Yeah, I I didn't see him. He passed away many years ago.
Okay. So you just mentioned you signed Ted Nugent. That's where you get your start as a producer. Ted had
Yeah.
already been around with the Amboy Dukes. So what did you see or hear that made you think, you know what, Ted solo could happen?
Oh yeah. Well, I had a reason to go to Chicago to see somebody else. And the guy who owned Ted, his production deal,
Yeah.
and who managed him at the time, came to see me and said, Ted Nugent is available. And I said, oh, whoop-de-doo. I only knew Journey to the Center of Your Mind, or The Mind,
Yep.
and the Amboy Dukes. So he said, Ted Nugent is single. I'll arrange for you to see him in Chicago because he's close by. And the Illinois Institute of Technology had a theater, and he played. There were maybe a couple hundred people. That's it. And he had his band. I mean, it was Cliff. I think Cliff was there, and Derek and Rob.
Yeah.
And he was just maximally explosive for the entire set. Funny, engaging. I had no idea that he could play guitar the way he did.
Yeah.
I just saw something recently where he performed. Why am I forgetting? What was this is great. I can't what was this our first big song? Opened the album #1, very long.
For Ted?
Yeah,
Stranglehold?
Stranglehold. Okay.
Okay.
Again, this is 80 years old. I
Yep.
mean, it's so frustrating. Anyway, I saw him perform Stranglehold live on video, and it was brilliant. I mean, the guy's really, really good, and he's like, I don't know how old he is now, but it was now.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I went backstage and I said, hey, let's do this. We can do this.
Yeah.
And he was very. We struck up a good friendship right away, and I knew what he wanted. I went out to his farm
Mhm.
in Michigan, and we spent the day,
Mhm.
and we were both in agreement about rock and roll and what kind we liked. And so, I became co-producer with his manager, the guy who owned his production deal. And eventually, David Krebs bought the management contract, and he was managing Aerosmith at the time, which was perfect for Ted to go out on the road with.
Yeah.
So we made 5 platinum albums together.
Yeah.
Never talked politics. I still talk to Ted.
Yeah.
My Democratic friends are, how could you do that? How could you talk to them? I said, listen, we have a non-political friendship, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Because from my perspective, aside from his politics, he's great.
Yeah.
In all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
Including I would never kill an animal.
Yeah.
But the first time I said that to him, he said, listen, you eat hamburgers, right? You just have other people kill the animal for you. I said, yeah, well, there you go.
That's a good point. How does so you kind of mentioned, I think Lou, and if I pronounce it, Lou Futterman
Futterman.
is supposed to be the producer for Ted's record, but you start becoming more of a producer with Ted. How does that happen that you
Well,
end up becoming the producer?
I used to go visit a few sessions and I would watch the producer work, and I began to say, these guys, I got ideas and they're missing it and they're going in the wrong direction. I think I could do better.
Mhm.
And anyway, I went into the studio to protect my investment in Ted, because if this was a stiff, then I'd probably lose my job by that point. Because I'd only signed one act that was a moneymaker.
Yeah.
So um, I started being there and suggesting things, and Ted had already kind of determined that I probably knew what I was talking about musically. And so I wound up doing a lot,
Yeah.
and more and more and more. And by the time we were ready to, issue the record, Lou Futterman said, Tom, we're going to give you co-producer credit because you've been so helpful, which was really nice of him.
Yeah.
And then as we made record after record, Lou kind of restricted himself to vocals.
Okay.
And he sat in the back of the room and I sat at the console. And
Okay.
basically,
Okay.
by the time we got to the fifth record, I mean, he was just visiting.
Okay. Okay.
So that was it. And then I was allowed to sign. People said, "Wow, look at this Ted Nugent thing." I mean, the first album we did with him just blew out of the stores. So Tom, we should allow. We should give him a little more credibility.
Sure.
If he comes to us wanting to sign a band, maybe we should sign it. So then I did Molly Hatchet and the Cheap Trick, and
You must have been when Ted hit kind of like phew
yeah,
after those years, right?
yeah, yeah. It was a great time
Um,
because I hadn't been watching from the side of the stage. I hadn't had any acts that were stadium size or arena size, and Ted would incite an audience.
yeah.
I was, in Detroit, they burned the seats.
Yeah.
I mean, who does that? Anyway,
Nobody's ever had the energy of Ted, even now. I mean, it's amazing. So
it is amazing. It is amazing, and the fastest mouth in the country.
yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard him say you know,
Yeah.
he doesn't pause. He's amazing, and on stage he appears to have more fun than anybody in the house. He just loves what he does. Yeah.
Sometime in 75 or 76, and I was because I didn't know about you and this band. Some guy comes into the office, plays you a demo of a song by somebody that nobody's ever heard of. The song is called More Than a Feeling.
Oh yeah.
What is your reaction when you hear that, which becomes Boston and one of the biggest selling debut albums of all time?
Actually, at that time, the biggest,
Yeah.
16 million.
Yep.
Well, yeah, this is what I said in the book was sometimes it just drops in your lap. You don't have to even leave the building. And his manager came in and told us we were his last stop of the day. He had been around to labels. Can't After it was all over, I really couldn't believe that even one other label would pass on this band. So we heard it. We went into my boss's office, and he had the best system, and he wasn't in town.
Yeah.
So we played More Than a Feeling. And halfway through the second song, or at the beginning of the second song, and I can't even remember what it was, I stopped the tape and I said, is this Candid Camera? What are we being offered this band? And we probably listened to a few more just to make sure. And I told him that if we saw the band live and they even came close to reproducing the record, I guaranteed them a really good deal. I did not have the authority to do this, but I wanted them. If they got away, it would be a tragedy. So we called my boss right away
Yeah.
from his office. And I said, Steve, we may have just been given the best rock and roll band in America. And he said, better than the Who, Werman? Because he knew I was a Who freak. And I said, they're not American.
Yeah.
So that was it. And then Lenny Pizzi really brought, Boston to me for a second opinion. So we both were listening to this, and we both obviously agreed that we should do this. And that was it. That was it. So we both went to see them.
Yeah.
I think it was over Thanksgiving vacation, because Lenny was from Boston too.
Mhm.
So that was it.
At what point do you feel like, you know what, I finally have the autonomy to do what I want? Like, I can sign whoever. I don't have to worry about the guy above me. Like, when do you feel like you have that?
After the first Cheap Trick album, I think, my first Cheap Trick album, which was in color,
In color.
and it didn't go nuts, but it was Rolling Stones album of the year, and I said, okay, that I got to be able to do. And then after Molly Hatchet, I was on. That was it. I felt very confident, also very stressed, because I had like 13 platinum albums in a few years, and I felt that this was now expected of me. And if people say, well, if we get Werman to produce, then we'll probably have a hit, and that wasn't right.
Right.
Anyway, I happened to hit a good streak in time, being out in LA with the Sunset Strip thing and the hair bands, and I don't know, it was very good timing. I'm not saying I didn't know what I was doing, that it was all luck, but the combination of the choice of band and me and the band itself and their songwriting, I don't know, it all just worked until
Yeah. Yep.
until the era closed, as far as I'm concerned, and the whole Seattle thing probably lasted till near 2000, the year, but I was not involved, and I was not considered for any of those, because I was hopelessly tied to metal, or
Pigeonhole.
hard rock, and the hair bands. I mean, if somebody like Nirvana, after their first album, if somebody suggested that they work with me, it would have been embarrassing for them.
Yeah.
I did Motley Crue, which was embarrassing at the time. In the 90s, corporate rock was
Yeah.
crap. It was just looked down on. It would be probably a decade and a half later until it became classic rock.
Right.
You know,
Right.
now it's classic, and it always will be.
And I really appreciate your time. I
Oh, hey, fun. It's fun.
realize I have there's you have such a history, and I've always wanted to know about it. Yeah, anyway. Um,
It's great. Most of it is in the book.
yeah, right. It is. It is.
A lot, a lot of people have said the same thing you said, which was I finished it in a couple of days.
Yeah.
And they said it's a quick read, which doesn't mean, it's monosyllabic. But I think a lot of people probably assumed that anybody who worked with Motley Crue might not be able to finish a sentence.
Right. Right.
So,
Right.
but people love the way it was written. People still write me emails and letters saying the nicest things
And
uh,
and I
about.
don't like I taught high school English. I used to be an avid reader, and regretfully, you get so it's easier to play with this or your computer, but so I don't read as much. But when I started this, I was like, then next thing you know, I'm like, it's 4 hours later. I'm like, holy buckets. Okay, where did the time
No,
go?
that's great.
So,
That is great. I mean, that's exactly what I wanted to do, and it's the only music book I'll ever write. I will, I think, start another one,
okay,
which won't be musical at all, and it'll be slightly humorous.
okay.
But um, it was a nice way to give myself permission to be totally retired because
Yeah.
it was the last thing I wanted to do. And once I got a publisher, I said, man, that's it. Now I can play golf. I can do, whatever it is that I wanted to do.
Were you hesitant about like maybe sharing some of the stories that some of the I mean, and it's all public knowledge, but like of your issues with Cheap Trick, your issues with
Oh,
Nikki Six, like were you hesitant of sharing and bringing that all out again?
yeah. Well, I did bring it out because I didn't understand it.
Yep.
And I thought it was, bogus
Yeah.
for them to do this, especially the Twisted Sister. The D. Snyder thing was what? What is it? I mean, anyway. Um, that was the worst. Rick, I'm sorry I couldn't continue speaking with, not having a friendship with the Cheap Trick guys.
Yeah.
Rick and I became quite friendly during our three albums
Yeah.
together. Um, I don't know. We actually had to sign an agreement between the band and me not to talk shit about each other and in the press.
Wow.
So I've never really been able to contradict his recollection, with any impunity. But
The point that you made in the book was like with Motley Crue and Cheap Trick. If they were so disgruntled, why would they keep you around for 3 albums?
true. And also the fact that that after me they went to George Martin of all people who made an unsuccessful album with them. And that, I mean, I worship that man.
I'll-
But I also took a little bit of delight or pleasure in the fact that this incredible producer just missed the target, missed it with them, and also Rick's writing may have, they may have peaked.
right,
Writers peak,
right.
except maybe for Henley,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There were several people, but it was three out of 200 musicians that I worked with.
Right.
Maybe four. George Lynch was in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. But that was anyway. A lot of these stories a lot of them are complex, but I did want to treat each one of them. Um, there's plenty that I didn't talk about
Yeah.
in the book, but that was just self-incriminating stuff. Uh, you know, to protect the innocent.
Right.
But anything that had to do with work and the band and producing, I didn't hide anything, you know.
Yeah. And you were I mean kind of I mean your love of cocaine
Yeah.
was talked about in the and I think you said you tried it in 72 and figured out like okay, hey, this stuff is kind of good and even though you talked about your time with it, what I don't think you addressed was did you ever feel like in the 70s or whatever in the 80s like it might be getting out of control.
Oh, God, yes. Well, I felt guilty about always having some around, and every time I bought it, I felt like, I wasn't I wasn't proud,
Yeah.
but everybody was doing it. So my the problem with my doing it was that I kept doing it longer after most of the other people around me had stopped. So but it never I don't think it ever affected my work. I didn't get blind.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, it was something that was part of my professional life in a way, as was alcohol,
Yeah.
but that's as far as it went, fortunately.
Was was there a moment where you were like, okay, that's enough. I got to get away from this. Like what was that moment?
Well, it wasn't a moment,
Okay.
it wasn't a revelation. It was, oh man, it just wasn't doing what it used to do,
Right.
right? Right. And my body wasn't happy with it, you know, and I knew it wasn't good for me. And so, it I kind of just wore off,
Yeah.
and I stopped. It wasn't a cold turkey thing. It just dribbled off, and I don't know how long it's been, 30 years or so, you know, but it was, for me, it was so much fun that I had to write about it. I had to write
Yeah.
about it.
And I'm glad I mean cuz that's the stuff that I'm always interested in knowing, the behind the scenes, what was going on with the bands and that's part of what your book does that so well is it's not just like, okay, let me tell you about this song. You do talk
Yeah.
about the songs, but you get the relationships, the behind the scenes stuff. I don't think you ever talked about this in the book, but and maybe you don't want to talk about it. Did your wife ever, Tom? Hello? Like this is getting out of control. I mean, I'm sure you're waking up hungover and feeling like crap.
I
Or
put a, yeah, I got so used to partying while working, having a good time at night, that I don't know if I wrote about it, but I had a two-person sauna installed in our closet. And for quite a while, I would get up and sweat it out,
right,
you know. Um, no, the answer is no. Suki did not, she didn't have present an ultimatum or
yeah,
anything. She did not enjoy drugs
right,
at all. And so I was kind of alone in that. And I had three young kids,
yeah,
and I couldn't, I had to hide my bad habits.
yeah,
Um, and I was a fairly responsible father
yeah,
for not having been around the house that much.
right,
'Cause I would sleep through when the kids went to school.
yeah,
And then when they were very young, or actually not even very young, I would get home after they went to bed. So sometimes I would hardly see them until the weekend.
sure,
Yeah. And Suki would bring them down to the studio for dinner
yeah,
during the week. And that was when I would see them, but not enough.
yeah,
Not enough. See them a lot now.
yeah. Uh, I went and not about me, but I was an alcoholic. I went to Iraq in 2003. I was in the military and got home.
Wow.
I was 31 years old, but I'd been a big partier before I went to Iraq. And then when I got home, it just exploded. Anyway, I went to treatment in 2004. So I've been sober since for about 21 years, but I can relate to
Wow.
a lot of what you're saying,
Yeah.
like sleeping, the kids, go and all those. So anyway, I related to so much of what you said about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know the alcohol was never a problem, except that it went along with the cocaine because you had to keep the,
Yeah.
yeah, you do the cocaine and then you have to take the edge off with the alcohol and then keep the edge on with but I'll have a cocktail occasionally and
Sure.
not a problem. It
Sure.
was only that drug
Yeah.
that really got a hold of me, because it was just too much fun.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
it made you into it introduced you to your evil twin.
Yeah. Did you like you talked about having this poster on your wall or something that said
Yeah,
do cocaine or something on
enjoy cocaine. A huge one in my office at CBS in Coca-Cola script.
yeah.
Anyway, but no, that was that was New York in the early 70s,
Yeah.
and everybody was discovering it.
Yeah.
But actually, the it's funny that I believe it's the longest chapter in the book, in 30 something chapters,
Right?
15 pages on cocaine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, says I'm honest. I wanted to bring it all out.
Yep.
You know,
Yep. Um, so you get to work with Motley Crue. When you meet them, do you think like, oh shit, how am I gonna get through this? I mean, because they're insane at that time. I mean,
they were, but not around me, not around the studio. Whatever they did, and I'm sure what we all heard and read about was true.
right,
Um, that was not, they didn't just turn the studio into a party room. They worked at it. They worked at the music. Vince was the least disciplined,
right,
but Tommy was right on it all the time.
right,
All the time. So was Mick.
right,
Yeah, I really enjoyed working with them. And I really enjoyed the association because I was a pretty, I was a preppy guy and an Ivy League guy and very conventional until, and then Motley Crue was the most radical association I ever had professionally. And it was, I think I said it was like temporarily joining a motorcycle gang,
yeah,
and I had a bad boy association with them. And it actually my daughter, who was at public school at the time, the other two were at private school. She was at North Hollywood High. And she said, Dad, at school, nobody messes with me because they say don't fuck with Julia. Her dad's tight with the crew. you know so it was like I was badass
yeah,
just
right,
for just by association.
right, right. Did you became so synonymous with hair metal or whatever you want to call it, hard rock.
Yeah, hard rock.
Did you like that stuff? I mean, would you listen to that when you were listening to music, or were you kind of like just, well, this is just what I happen to produce a lot of?
That's right, it's what they made me do. I mean, they literally said, no, you do that, you don't do this. And I was a big not country rock but acoustic. Eagles, I love the Eagles. I just love them. And I had a folk group when I was in high school. I learned, I played the acoustic guitar. I taught myself on the acoustic guitar. And I love pop music. hard, but I call it, what did I call it? Power pop, like
Yeah,
Cheap Trick. That was where I was most comfortable.
yeah.
Um, so I did not have Iron Maiden in my record collection, um, stuff like that. I wasn't an Ozzy fan, and that was it, really. The Who was as close as I got to absolute metal.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
because you can hear the pop in all of the records that I did with bands that wanted to be hard rock. And that includes all of them, really. Twisted Sister, Motley Crue, Cheap Trick, Poison. They all wanted to be harder and louder, and I wanted them on the radio.
And
That's
and and I mean, it's probably you probably already answered it, but your pop sensibilities with their heavy metal cre got them on the radio. I mean, that created the right combination.
I think so. Yeah. And I kind of make a joke about why I was pigeonholed in that I did a lot of power ballads that were the key to AM radio play and massive album sales. And I used to say, well, labels would sign a band and eventually say, "What in God's name are we going to do with this?" Oh, give it to Werman. He can deal with this. He can make a sow's ear a silk purse out of a sow's ear,
Right.
right?
Right.
Anyway, I didn't think there were. I mean, I had to like the band in order to do it. So I did eventually like Motley Crue when I saw them live. I
Right.
did not like their first record
Right.
necessarily. I, and you got to be a fan of the band in order to do a good job, I think.
Right.
You know,
In those times with Motley Crue, like obviously all the albums are successful, but like they went through some of their most whatever controversial
turbulent.
turbulent turbulent times when you were with them. The Vince Neil car crash with
Yeah,
Russell happens, and then you do Theater of Pain. Like, did they ever show them that there any of their like, man, like I went through this thing? Did you ever see that side of you know
I really
change or reflection in Motley Crue?
no, I really didn't. I don't remember a lot of remorse from Vince. Nikki did have a car accident on the first record, during the first record, but no, there was no real drama. There was no, it was all after the sessions or between the sessions or records or on the road.
Right.
Um, it's almost disappointing that there are no outrageous stories that I can tell about Motley Crue in the studio,
Sure.
really.
Sure.
But, you know, it wasn't that bad.
I think did you saw Nikki, or I know you called him the day that he
Yeah,
overdosed. Did you actually go hang out with, or did you guys go eat or something that day? Like, what
we
what
had
do you
sushi.
remember about that?
We had sushi. Uh, I think it was his accountant who called. I called him or he called me and said he checked himself out of the hospital.
How
And
do you how do you hear that he had overdosed? Like how do
I
you?
heard, I did hear it on the radio.
Oh,
And then this was a long time ago, so
yep,
I don't remember the details, but I did call him at home
yeah,
and he said, let's go get sushi. We rarely had a meal together,
yeah.
you know, and I went to his house a few times, just to hang out,
Mhm,
because it was fairly near me.
mhm.
But, you know, that was it. I mean, he kind of just sloughed it off like no big deal.
Right. I just died. Not a big deal.
Yeah, yeah. I just died.
Um, in the Heroin Diaries, Nikki
Yeah,
says you were detached, uninterested,
right.
play involved, and all those albums went like quadruple platinum, and they kept. I mean, were you like what? I mean, were you shocked?
Well, no, I mean, the guy was on heroin. You're supposed to believe what, that it's accurate. I, you know, I think just generally there are some people who don't like to share the credit, you know, and that's what I mean. Even Twisted Sister or even Snyder said, "Well, so here comes this guy, and he's got all these platinum records, and he's a big deal record producer." And it's not. Well, anyway, we were fortunate enough to meet up with Tom Werman. No, it's like, oh, here's this guy. And he'd been working for 10 years or so with this band and not getting anywhere really in the United States.
Ah,
And then I come along and work with them and have this huge record, and he has to share the credit because up to then and after that,
nothing.
nothing happened. That was it for them, really. Um, so that he just didn't want to. I think he didn't want to share the credit.
Do you think that like these rock stars, they get so used to everybody kissing their ass and
Yeah,
telling them you're amazing, you don't need anybody else, that they need to prove that, well, it wasn't anything Tom Werman had to do. I was the sole responsibility for the success.
I think so. It's kind of like Trump. uh, I get all the credit. That's what that's what I think is at work, and maybe other things too. But I can tell you that I was never detached.
Right.
And at one point in one of the books, maybe The Dirt, he actually claims that he produced all of Vince's vocals. Complete, complete fiction. I read this stuff and I say, oh, geez, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. So, but it's part of the program. I can't complain really because I was very fortunate, and I still feel fortunate. Gave me a good life, you know.
Did Vince ever address any of that? All right, he probably hasn't, but
No, no. Mick and I had the best relationship, and Tommy was cool.
yeah,
Vince was too. It was Nicky,
yeah.
you know. Um, and it was the same in Cheap Trick. Bunny and I had the best. That was the best friendship or relationship
Yeah.
in that band. And Robin, Tom and Rick were had after the fact were surprisingly the biggest problems, especially Tom. God,
Really?
yeah, he said really bad things, which probably broke the contract, but I didn't.
Right,
I didn't sue him.
right.
And then I think that was it, really.
Didn't you say
One, one,
that?
one of the funniest, one of the strangest things I read about me was said by D. Snyder, who in his book said, I believe that Tom Werman personally destroyed our album. Something like that.
Yeah.
He forgot to say personally destroyed our 6 times platinum album. What are you saying? What are you doing? Anyway, it's late. It's too late for
Yeah.
me to deal with that. And it's a real luxury to be able to put it behind me and ignore it.
And
Water under the bridge.
Twisted Sister later re-recorded
Yeah,
stay hungry, like it was supposed to sound. And
right.
no offense, but that thing tanked faster than the Titanic. But
I think I think, yeah, it may have sold 25, 30,000 records. Yeah.
and I'm did and I'll while we're just the only thing I'll ask, did you know when you heard like we're not gonna take it, like uh-oh, this is gonna be the one.
No, um, I mean, one of the things that was true was that I didn't love we're not going to take it because I did tell him, I'm pretty sure that it sounded a little like a nursery rhyme.
Yeah.
Na, 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 na. Uh, but, and it was a surprise.
Mhm.
Its success was a bit of a surprise. Um, you know, the songs were basic,
Yeah.
but obviously they appealed to a large segment of the listening audience.
Yeah.
So no, I didn't. You know, the only time that really happened was with Every Rose Has Its Thorn.
Yeah.
The first time I heard it, I said, "Oh boy, we we have a hit single."
We got
Yeah,
one. We got
yeah.
one. Um, well,
That and also Cat Scratch Fever, same thing.
okay.
Otherwise, I never said, "Oh, that's it. It's a hit."
Really?
No, it you have to create a hit, really.
Sure.
So
Well, speaking of ballads, like I always thought the first hair metal ballad was Alone Again by Dokken, which you worked on. I mean, there had obviously been like Love Hurts by Nazareth. Obviously, there were ballads before, but like the 80s rock power ballad, I felt like was a song that you did
could be, yeah. Was that before Dream On?
before Dream On by.
Aerosmith.
Oh yeah, I guess I just kind of consider them two different eras. But of you're absolutely right, and maybe I'm talking out of my ass.
That I mean, that for me is the classic,
Totally.
forever great power ballad. But I did, I admit to following something of a routine in terms of how I produced the subsequent power ballads,
Okay.
you know, uh, and it worked.
Yeah.
So I kept doing it.
One of the more shocking stories in the book is when you're working with Dawkins, and I mean it's no surprise that you had issues with George Lynch. George
Yeah.
Lynch probably had issues with everybody. But
No.
the story that you told about, if I can say the name, what's in the book, Jeff Workman,
Oh yeah,
and what he was doing behind the scenes that may have helped create the issues. I mean,
did help. It did. Yeah.
uh, how did you find out what he was that he was creating these?
I think maybe somebody in the band must have told me, or maybe Don, but I did find out, and it answered a lot of questions. And I did discover, and it took me, unfortunately, a little naive, took me 3 albums to discover that he would take the most important guy in the band and talk him up and tell him that I didn't know at all what I was doing, and he was going to save the record
Yeah,
every time.
yeah,
And he was a bad guy, really good engineer.
yeah.
Too
Um,
bad.
and just for the people who are listening, like he would apparently record you having conversations and
Yeah.
edit it to make it sound like you. And obviously, he's an engineer; he's going to be good at that to make
Oh
it
yeah.
sound like you were bad mouthing the band.
Oh yeah. Beyond that, yeah, beyond bad mouthing.
Okay,
I mean, it was really bad, and George bought it.
yeah. Did you get along with Don?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure.
Um. Uh.
And I still think George is top five.
Oh, sure. You talked about like how you didn't you You weren't like, oh, I love 80s hair metal. An album that I love that you worked on that I bet you don't get asked about, but maybe you do. In 1986, Jason and the Scorchers,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
still
Really nice.
standing. Oh,
I love that. I loved them.
yeah,
They were great to work with.
yeah.
Just really, yeah. And anytime I made an album that wasn't a hit, I felt bad for the guys. I didn't feel bad for me, but it's their life's work, and I feel like I let them down. Um, but they were really fun. I
I don't
like
think I
them.
discovered until I was like 19 or 20 that
Yeah.
I loved alt country music.
Oh yeah.
Grew up just a metalhead, but got
Yeah.
older and like you mentioned the Eagles, like Take It Easy, I think is one of the greatest songs of all time. Uh,
Really. Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. I saw last year we went to the Sphere
Yeah,
in Vegas
yeah,
to see the Eagles. It was life changing. I would tell everyone this is a bucket list experience you must have. It may not be with the Eagles,
right.
although they're still doing it.
Yeah.
Um, but I drop dead, unbelievable experience to go to the Sphere and to combine it with the Eagles live.
Was it different with Vince Gill versus Glenn Fry, or I mean, or was there any
Well,
sense of
Deacon Fry took Glenn's place. Um, Vince Gill was just an addition, really,
okay, okay,
you know, because Glenn's son did
okay,
a very good job.
yeah,
I don't think he stayed with them, but I've seen them twice. I saw them twice, once at the Garden, the Madison Square Garden, and once, and I was lucky enough to play golf with Glenn a couple of times. He's a lefty.
all right.
Um, eh, anyway, it was heaven. It was a peak audio visual experience.
Sure.
I can't understand how they built that place.
Yeah.
Henley said that there are 140,000 speakers.
All right.
Yeah, they must be this big,
Yeah.
but but I don't think he would put us on.
When you took the Poison gig, they'd already had Look What the Cat Dragged In, and I love Poison, I really do, but their reputation as a band was that they weren't the most talented band.
And
Was it
they would. Ricky admitted that. He said, "I know I'm not the best drummer in the world, but we had no ringers. I don't hire ringers. I had probably in 52 albums, I may have had 6 or 7 session guys come in and play on maybe 1 or 2 songs on each album.
right?
With Poison, it was a harmonica player.
Yeah.
Yeah. No one else sat in. I would, of course, add if a band didn't have a keyboard player like Cheap Trick, I would love to put keyboards on afterwards, which I did. But yeah, they they worked hard.
Yeah. And
Poison.
that was your reputation as a producer was, hey, we'll figure it out. So the like now, and I'm sure you're obviously aware of Beau Hill,
Yeah.
who produced some really big albums, but his reputation was, oh, if you can't do it right away, we're gonna get somebody else in. I talked to
Oh yeah.
Brian Forsyth from Kix, said there was an issue with the band Warrant. Anyway, so he was always known for bringing in ringers to complete
Ah,
parts.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I liked in the book you were like, hey, you know, like we're gonna figure it out with the band that you
Yeah.
didn't do that. So
Yeah. Keep,
was the drug use with Poison because CC was known to be kind of he was starting to drift toward a bad path. Was that
yeah.
evident at that time or
Yeah. Yeah, he cleaned up totally, I think afterwards, but or at some point afterwards.
Yeah.
But he was yeah, he was a busy boy. It took us, I think I wrote about it, many, many, many hours to do a 35-second solo.
Yeah.
He would just say, wipe it, I want to start again,
Yeah.
again and again and again with trips to the bathroom, and he would admit it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, he went through that, and Bobby was a party animal too.
Yeah.
Um, so
I
that
thought you
was it.
said I thought you said in the book that Bobby seemed like the leader of the band. Thought that was kind of really surprising.
Yeah, he was the not the brains, but he was certainly the business man in the band, and he was I think he and Brett were definitely the most serious
Okay.
guys. Brett was very well behaved,
Yeah.
mainly because he was a diabetic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But in the
maybe
book
he
you talked
was.
about the amount of girls that were coming to see Brett.
Oh my God, it was stunning. It was stunning. That was when I turned to him and I said, we should have one of those delicatessen numbers machines. Take a number. Ready? Next. Who's next? It was amazing. Really amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, and I interviewed Ricky a while
Yeah.
back, and you kind of like you said, he was, hey, I'm not the best drummer, but you said you would work incredibly hard
Yeah.
to get it right. So I was just gonna the song "Don't Close Your Eyes." You worked on the Kicks album, and I know we talked about ballads. That song was originally off the "Blow My Fuse" album from Kicks. Originally was not gonna be a single. It wasn't until Alan Niven, who was the Great White manager, heard them play it live and was like, "What are you guys doing? You got to release this as a single and video." They do, it becomes a big hit. But were you ever part of conversations about like, hey, we're thinking of doing this as a single? Did they ask you? And did you?
No, no, producers, or at least as far as I was concerned, when I was finished with an album, that's the last I discussed it, or I never made any decisions.
Right, right.
No, that was all the label, all the label.
But
I could say, wait a minute, you're going to release Southern Girls as
yeah,
a single?
yeah,
I wouldn't do that, but I never could say, all right, this is the next single, or this is our first single.
right. But
No,
did you feel like that, like when you heard that finished song, like I would think you would obviously that's going to be a hit. I mean, a big power ballad in 1988, and they weren't gonna.
I guess, uh, wasn't Rip and Tear on that
That
album?
was L.A. Guns.
Oh, that's right. I'm
L.A.
sorry.
Guns. Yep. Nope. Nope.
Oh, more
And
confusion.
and I read in your book, you said that "Rip and Tear" was one of the songs that you were like you felt like should have been a big hit.
Yeah, well, not necessarily an AM radio play hit, but much more talked about and respected and listened to. Uh, it was the end that was
Yeah.
so.
And the lot. So in 1990, you work on an album by a band called Love Hate, and
Yeah.
you talked about greatest misses songs, and you said the song, "Why do you think they call it dope?" Like, what do you remember about doing this album? Which I love this album.
Well, yeah. Um, I don't remember a lot,
Sure.
you know, but I do. I remember Jizzy, and I remember who was the guy? What was the name of the singer?
Jizzy was the singer of
No, I thought Jizzy was the guitar player.
oh, Skid, I think, was the bassist and the main songwriter. I think John Love. Now I'm gonna feel bad if I mess it up, but Jizzy was the singer of
I think John was the drummer.
Okay, that could be.
I remember the drummer was the son of the owner of the Lakers partner.
Oh, okay.
He
Okay.
took me to a game once.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we sat in the owner's box, which was in the nosebleed section. I didn't understand that. Anyway, heard that band and wanted to sign them to a production deal and then bring them to a label, which is what I considered that's the way the other guys were doing it. All the other producers who were making a lot of money.
Yep.
And so I had never done that. I just said, yeah, I'll produce your record and here's how much it costs. Um, but I think I was working on signing them because I loved them,
Yeah.
and Columbia stole them. I mean,
Okay.
the guy, I can't remember his name. He was the head of A&R. I brought them to him, and then he signed them directly.
Oh, right. Right.
I was shopping the band,
Okay.
and he signed them directly, and I should have sued him.
Yeah.
But anyway, he asked me to produce, so I
Um,
did. Yeah, I think they were heavy band, serious.
great band. When grunge hits, and you kind of meant like obviously the scene changes. When do you go, uh-oh, my what I do is not going to be what's happening anymore? When do you
Yeah.
realize?
When my daughter played the Beastie Boys, and I said that sounds like it was recorded in 5 minutes, and she said, yeah, right, that's it. And I said, oh my, I never considered that.
Sure.
And so I said when the stuff that I was associated with,
Yeah.
was no longer at all interesting, and everybody was into new stuff. I knew at that point, see, up till that point, I had just assumed that I could continue doing what I did forever,
Yep.
and I was wrong. I ignored the concept of change,
Yeah.
and everything, pretty quickly did change, and it was good, but I didn't love it.
Right.
I didn't love the fact that it wasn't striving for perfection. I always strove for perfection, and they wanted it to be imperfect.
Right.
The alternative music and
Mhm.
new music, and so I started thinking about getting out. You know, Fortunately, I had that last project, which was Rockstar,
Rockstar.
because they needed somebody to produce mid-80s metal. And that was fun.
Hey, we are back with Tom Werman because we actually did about an hour and 15 minutes, but I said, "Hey Tom, I said I'd love to do a part two because there's a few other things I'd love to," and he was like gracious enough. Tom, thank you for coming back for a part two.
I had fun. What can I
Oh,
say?
well, man, and we're talking about the book, Turn It Up. So I'll just
Um,
give everybody a reminder that they need to pick this up, and I'll have the purchase link in the
Thank you.
description. But I want to do one thing that we kind of got through most of the 70s and the 80s. We were just starting in the 90s, but one thing that I wanted to bring up about Molly Hatchet, because one of the great stories that you need to read in the book is about you working with Molly Hatchet, but one of the more heartbreaking stories was when you talked about what happened to the band like after the glory days. And could you like what happened to Molly Hatchet?
well, I didn't really keep in touch with them, but they kind of faded away. They apparently didn't take care of themselves very much, and they all passed away in time. And I don't know, the band's popularity on the road, I guess, followed their popularity with record sales,
Yeah.
and when I usually, this is going to sound bad, but when I stopped working with a band, they stopped having big selling
Yeah.
records.
Yes.
So I don't know what happened to Molly Hatchet. I liked them. I did stay in touch with their manager for a bit, but they, it was sad. I don't think they were ever counseled properly about how to take care of their money or, I mean, these guys all came from, modest backgrounds and some broken homes, and
Yep.
it's I don't know.
Is
It was sad. It
yeah.
was sad, but at some point, I'd read about one of them passing away, and then another one passing away, and then pretty
Yeah.
soon there were none left.
And in the book, you said like Dave, when they had all these platinum albums, and he had a mansion and two Rolls
Yes,
Royces, and by the end, it's all gone. And
I think, yeah, I don't remember what he did.
yeah,
I think no, I don't want to make any mistakes.
right. Don't want to, but I'm sure, like with a lot of these guys, like you said, they come from nothing, and then to suddenly have riches and all this, and who knows how to handle that? I mean, just like sports stars who become
That's
multimillionaires
right.
when they're 20.
Yeah. Yeah, there
So
are some who lose it all. I mean, um, Hammer w went broke.
yeah,
MC Hammer,
right.
he was on top of the world, and he had all these, you know, friends hanging around, and he wasn't very good about saving money, and
Yeah,
he was obviously a very good guy
yeah,
and very generous. And
yeah,
see ya, that
yeah.
was it. Terrible.
We had kind of touched on grunge hitting. You had said that the big turning point for you was when your daughter was listening to the Beastie Boys, and
Right.
you realized that things were going to change.
Yeah.
Did you try to adapt your production style? Instead of perfection, did you find yourself going, okay, I got to make this maybe a little more raw, or did you change anything?
No, I didn't change anything. The bands did. The ones I did in the 90s.
Yeah,
I did three really interesting bands for Geffen Records, and none of them happened. And that was kind of a signal to me. No, I didn't try to change anything. I did what I naturally liked to do
yeah,
musically, for 20 years, and then
yeah,
I wasn't going to just say, "Oh, I wonder how to produce this kind of record," or I'd have to adapt to my musical taste. Your
right.
musical taste is your musical taste. You don't say, I think I'll acquire a musical taste for R&B or for hip hop or
Yeah,
for grunge or anything.
yeah,
I worked with a couple of bands that they were gnarly,
yeah,
but I did for them what I tried to do for everyone else. But I don't think it's because I was unable to produce in that style.
right.
But no, the answer is I no. I wouldn't actually have known how. The only thing I could have done is to let things be a little out of tune
Right,
and a little out of time, and
right.
let them sound
Shit.
like doing it live, like shit.
Yeah, skip.
Well, that's the thing, earlier in the book about setting up and bringing a band into the studio, they all wanted to record live.
Yeah,
And I said, I prefer to do it like this, keep the drum track, have you go out and play, but only keep the drums and
yep,
then overdub the bass. And they said, nah, that's a cop out. And so I said, all right, go out and play live. We'll do a couple of takes, come in and listen. And they came in and listened, and they would turn ashen white.
yeah,
They were like, what?
right.
Because they had never heard themselves or each other through a studio microphone,
Yeah.
and it don't lie.
Right. It's
So
not always
they
pretty
said,
seeing how the sausage is made.
yeah, that's right.
Right.
So they said, all right, we'll do it your way. Um, but it appears that like when Cheap Trick did their what did they do? Which album with Steve Albini?
Oh,
I can't remember, but Steve Albini, I don't know exactly how he worked. I don't know how much success he had, but I was told that he basically just pressed record and let it go.
right.
You know, and that I think is what Cheap Trick wanted. They thought, it was a little slick and too
Right.
pop. And story of my life, getting him
Yeah.
on the radio meant making it so you could sing in the shower, and you wanted that record.
You,
And I wasn't a commercial sellout. I was a pop fan.
yeah. You mentioned how there was a lot of bands who would have their biggest albums with you,
Yeah,
and then after you, Cheap Trick, Molly Hatchet, Motley Crue, even Dr. Feelgood was,
was.
but in most cases had did was were there times where you like, what are you guys doing? Why fix it if it ain't broke? Like, were there
Oh,
any bands where you thought that?
I thought it with Twisted Sister,
Yeah,
and with Cheap Trick.
yeah,
But yeah, look, you've got um, these people. There are some who, for one reason or another, just will not be satisfied with
right,
anything.
right.
Cheap Trick placed blame for a lot of things they didn't like
Yeah,
on others.
yeah. Um, you mentioned three Geffen records. I assume I think one of them is Pariah,
Yeah, Pariah, Junkyard,
Junkyard,
and not McQueen Street, but uh
Graveyard Train,
yes,
Graveyard Train.
yeah. What a blues singer that guy. They were great. Graveyard Train, Junkyard too.
Oh,
If they didn't, if they weren't successful, it's not because of their talent. Well, their songs. They just needed a better song, I guess. But those albums stand up. They're pretty nice. Pariah had a couple. I don't know if I told this story in the book. Pariah had a couple of brothers who were the guitar players,
yeah.
and they came from Austin, Texas, and one of them came out with his girlfriend, who was a cute little blonde. She was about 17 at the time, and she would drop him off at the studio and then go for cattle calls and auditions. And she said, I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to be an actor in Hollywood. I'll be a star. We kind of had a patronizing attitude toward that. It was like, okay, Renee, go ahead. Good luck with that. And it turned out to be Renee Zellweger.
Yeah. I don't know if you talked about that in the book,
Yeah, she was very cute and very nice.
right?
And yeah, that was good. We were friends.
That Tumaka Killing Bird album
Yeah.
that you did with Pariah, and one of the songs that you said was one of the greatest misses in your book was Pariah's "Do You Know How to Rock."
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
but that album came out in '93. I think it got delayed a lot. I could be wrong.
I don't remember
Okay,
if
okay.
it got delayed or why it got delayed. I think it had a fair shot, but I don't know. None
That
of them happened. And I met Geffen once and he said, I'm a big fan. Why don't you do more records for us? And I said, well, you really have to ask your A&R department that.
yeah,
And I really wanted to make a hit for David Geffen,
yes.
but didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, the Junkyard album, I thought their Simple Man, which is obviously not a cover of Skinnerd, but Junkyard, Simple Man was, I thought that a song
Yeah.
that was begging to become a hit. But
Huh. Huh.
anyway,
Well, it's strange, but I can't remember much of the material from
sure.
any of those
Yeah.
three albums. It's just me and the fact that there are 600 songs roughly that I produced. Some of them just, don't occupy that top shelf in my
Yeah.
brain.
Sure. Sure. I don't know, and maybe, but Sims Ellison from
Yeah,
Pariah, who was Renee Zellweger's boyfriend, he ended up committing suicide a couple years.
yeah,
Anyway, that's
yeah. And
tragic.
I hear something like that, and I say, oh man, if they had had a hit
Right.
album instead of a stiff, maybe he wouldn't be dead today. You know, maybe that had something to do with it, and I had something to do with the album, so it
Yeah.
gives you pause. It's sad.
I and I would and in no way, shape, or form would you, but I'm sure you feel like a sense of duty to these bands. Like if it doesn't succeed, I'm sure you take some of that on yourself,
Yep.
unfortunately.
Yeah, and I just go, from one studio to another. I'm finished with your album. That's it, folks. I'm the croupier. I show you nothing up my sleeves, and I go on to the next project.
Right.
And it's a job for me, a passionate job, but they have spent their lives, doing this. This is what they do. And if they're not a success at it, then yeah, it's partially my responsibility. And I feel bad.
But
I feel bad, especially for bands that I love. I mean, you mentioned Jason and the Scorchers.
yes,
It was a one-off thing, and I loved them, and they deserved everything they could get. They deserved the best, and you know, I apparently didn't make it happen. So it's 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 tough. It doesn't feel good.
I I feel like in their case they were just ahead of the game. Like they would have
Could
been more comfortable in the early '90s than in the mid '80s.
Yeah, that
Sound.
could be. That could be.
And it speaks well to you that you say that. Like I don't get the feeling that I get the feeling that you put everything you could into these albums, that you didn't shortchange these bands because you really wanted them to succeed. Anyway,
I did. And I mean, I did other things too that I thought were a little unusual. One was I refused to take publishing from any band. A lot of producers did that. They took some of the publishing because they said, if I get you a deal, I get this and I get that.
right?
So I didn't do that. And, as an A&R man, I used to write a personal letter to every single person who submitted a tape, and that was thousands.
Yeah,
Other guys used form letters,
yeah.
you know,
Wow.
and 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 there were some other things that I would rewrite some lyrics with the songwriter, and I wouldn't take co-writer credit. I wouldn't take publishing on that song. Anyway, because that's part of the producer's job.
Okay.
That was it. So maybe I was too. You know, I always tried to do the right thing,
Mhm.
and that doesn't play well in the music business sometimes. It's like, oh, Werman, he's an honest guy. Let's take advantage of him,
Right.
because
Right.
he's like naive. I I don't know. I
How did and maybe you don't want to go into this. How did it work? Like how do you get paid? It's probably not just a set fee. I mean, if an album did well, I'm assuming you made more. Is there
Oh yes,
like
yes.
how does that? Could you briefly just how does that work?
Well, I got 75,000 up front
Okay.
to do an album, and that was uh, an advance.
Yeah.
So when the album started to sell, if it did,
Yeah.
I had a royalty rate of I think it was 3 or 4% of the retail wholesale
Okay.
price, and it came out to about 35 cents an album. So once I earned once the company earned $75,000 of my, this is a little difficult, but at my royalty rate, if they made back my advance,
Yep.
then I would start getting paid from record one.
Okay.
I would start getting paid minus the 75,000.
Okay.
If if the record stiffed, I still kept the 75,000,
Okay.
but I wouldn't make any more.
Okay.
And so if you make a 5 million seller, you make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was great. And then of course I did put 3 kids through private school, and you know I bought a few sports cars. But the eventually, I don't know if you remember, there were a few years, about 10 years ago, when all the big special purpose acquisition companies started buying venues and promoters, and songwriters. I mean, Dylan got 5 million, 500 million.
Yep.
I think Bruce got 300 million.
Yep.
I did not get that, but I did. A lawyer called me up and said, "Here's what I can get you," and it sold.
Okay.
And that was when I retired.
Okay.
Because I could have continued to get a reasonable income,
Yeah.
good, healthy income, but it would have paid for our lives as we went along.
Yep.
Nice life.
Yep.
But this way, they take everything you are going to get forever,
Yep.
right? I own nothing. I don't get a penny. They pay me a lump sum, and that lump sum, one year you give it to somebody and say, okay, can you get me such and such a percentage on this money? Can you invest this money?
Yep.
And if you get a certain percentage that's modest,
Yeah.
it'll generate a yearly income, and it'll remain or grow.
Yeah.
So that's what happened, and I was
Okay.
really fortunate because that never happened before.
Okay.
There were mergers and acquisitions, but not that kind of acquisition. It's like, let's buy Werman's catalog.
Yeah.
What? Really? It was like giving away your babies, but hey, I got kids,
Yeah.
I'd been making omelets for 20 years at the bed and breakfast.
Yep.
It's hard work.
I didn't even think about, like, yeah, you hear about all these artists selling their publishing but I didn't
Yeah.
think about producers selling their.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know of any others actually, but I'm sure it happened.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah. And writers and artists got a lot of money. Stevie Nicks got a lot of money.
Right.
I can't. I heard of a few.
Did you ever sense, and this is so awesome, did you ever sense or like issues within a band about, like, because like you said, the money's with the publishing, with the songwriter. Like, hey, shit, how come we're working on his song? I got these 2 songs. Like, did you ever see that kind of thing play out?
Who's his song?
Or just with any artist, like, like maybe the singer, you're working on, maybe the singer writes all the songs, but
Yeah.
then the guitar player is like, well, hey, how come
Yeah.
we're not doing my 2 songs? Because he knows that's where the money is. I mean, was that an issue in the studio? with any band.
Not publicly.
Oh, right.
No, no. Like they weren't. They wouldn't say, "Hey, come on, my song is much better than this."
Right.
That never happened. I'm sure it did outside of the studio, but no, it didn't happen in the
Okay.
studio. Yeah, it's like maybe George Harrison. His position was,
Right.
hey guys, and he had those three or four really good songs on Revolver. That was when he kind of came out of the shadows as a writer, But it was all Lennon McCartney.
Yeah. And maybe I'm wrong, but don't like when you first go into the studio with the band, don't they like if they have 20 songs, don't they go, "Hey Tom, here's our 20 songs," and you kind of, and maybe I'm wrong, you kind of decide, "Okay, I think we're going to work on these 12."
Yeah. I certainly give him my list and I will argue for that 12.
Right.
Um, I didn't think, I think we talked about it last time. We're not going to take it.
Yep.
I didn't think that was particularly strong. I admit it.
Yep.
We did it. We did a good job on it. It was huge. Um, but yeah, it is not within my power to insist that we do a song.
Sure.
And it's not within my power to insist that we don't do a song.
Right.
So I'll put in my 2 cents, but really it's the A&R department, the label, and the band. Because you don't really want to produce a song that everybody's going, "Oh, geez, we got to play this." That's not going to work.
Yeah.
You want them to like the song. You want them to
Yeah.
feel that. And then after like a couple of weeks, when the songs start to take shape, we all basically can identify the strongest ones,
Yeah.
and we purposely spend more time and money on the ones that could be singles.
Okay.
I mean, like girls, girls, girls. What are you going to do? I mean, are you going to second guess that song? No. So
Right.
you make sure it's really good. And if you're running out of time or money, then you don't do as much work on the turkeys. Well, when I would sequence a record, um, I always saved next to last on side B for the worst song, in my opinion, on the record, because I didn't want people to hear the worst song on the record as the last track they played when they walked away. So I would put it there next to last, and I called it the turkey slot because it wasn't very good. So you could shift your time and effort toward the single
Yeah.
and just take the turkey, leave it basically alone. Don't waste your time,
Yeah.
and put it there. Look, this is it's the record business.
Yeah.
It's not the record hobby. So
Right.
yeah, you do have to think commercially
Yeah.
for part of the time.
And on a general album, how many songs? I mean, would you go into it thinking, okay, we're gonna try to find 3 or 4 singles that are gonna be the ones that we're gonna work on, or
Well, yeah, Clive he used to reject an album that it would be delivered to him, and he'd say, "I don't hear a single. Go back and do this or do that," or he'd give him a song
yeah,
to do. Um, yeah, having a single, if you're going to release an album, if you don't have a single on it or a song that the label deems to be a single, not good. A lot of bands were, Rick Rubin was famous for that.
mhm,
He would hear the band would come and give him a demo or they'd start an album and he'd say, "You guys need to go back and write some more songs." I never did that. I thought that was pretty bold.
yeah,
But if I never agreed to do a band until I heard their demos.
Right.
So, if the demos were weak, I'd pass. And if I heard Cat Scratch Fever, you're on, you know.
Um, you worked on the Babylon AD,
Yeah, yeah.
Nothing Sacred, and I had Derek Davis on, the singer and songwriter, and I think I'm gonna sneeze. I apologize.
Uh-oh, uh-oh.
Uh, shit. Okay, I
Okay.
think I got through it.
I hate
Um,
I hate when that happens.
yeah, right. And he said that Clive Davis gave them the song "Psychedelic Sex Reaction." And I understand you might not remember all the little, but he said,
Oh,
you need to record this song because until you write me a song that's better than that, I need this song on the album. Like the band didn't want to do it, but
huh.
they did end up putting it on Nothing Sacred that you worked on.
I do not honestly remember
Sure.
that situation,
Yep.
but I'm not surprised.
Right. Um, so I did want to, and I completely get that you might not, you did so many bands, but I love the McQueen Street album. Like when I started this channel, one of the first albums I talked about, the Time was a ballad that should have just blown up the charts. My Religion was a rock song.
Mm.
Money, Only the Wind. Anyway, I love that album.
Oh,
I
great.
do you
I'll go back and listen to it.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Oh, so do you remember anything? What? And I'll just
I,
kind of ask it. What were the other bands that you thought, man, this album should hit?
Love, hate,
Love, hate.
definitely.
Yeah.
Uh, and every I did two albums with Mother's Finest and two with the producers, both from Atlanta. I thought they were in the top five bands I ever did.
Hmm.
I thought they were magnificent.
Hmm.
I thought it was a grand slam home run,
Yeah.
and I was wrong, and I blame the label for. I honestly, it's easy to blame the label, but
Yeah.
I do blame the label for those two.
Yeah.
Uh, Mother's Finest was astonishing.
Yeah.
I mean, really astonishing. Live, they incinerated the stage, and the producers were just beyond commercial. I mean, they were so catchy, so bright. Their lyrics were great. He was a fabulous singer. They were all excellent musicians. What was missing? Promotion was missing, but I don't know.
You wrote about Mother's Finest in your book, and I went and I was like, so I sat by my computer and you would talk about a band, and then I'd go on YouTube and find.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Mother's Finest, they were like kind of a
They were a black
um,
metal band.
black metal. Yeah, okay, yes.
They
Right.
were, and they were years before Living Color.
Right. Right.
And I think that they may have helped to grease the wheels
Right.
for In Living Color.
Okay.
Um, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
boy, were they good. Just if you're going to listen to anything, listen to Mickey's Monkey.
Okay.
It's a cover of the original. I mean, these people were just consummate musicians,
Yeah.
and um, and the producers. Geez, listen to side one of their first album, it called The Producers.
Okay.
What's He Got? And what's the other one? Well, just listen to What's He Got,
Sure.
and then listen to Mickey's Monkey on Mother's Finest. Those two songs.
Okay.
That's why, and then reflect on the fact that nobody ever heard them really. I mean, they were both cult bands. In other words, they did have fans and they were very popular, but on a small scale.
Yeah. Um,
Ain't terrible for me.
yeah. Okay, I'm gonna definitely gonna check those out. And I think I did when I read the book. You worked with Tora Tora in 1994 on an album called Revolution Day. It didn't even come out.
No.
Is that when you started to feel like I need to start thinking about a career change?
What year was that?
94.
Probably at that point, yeah. I realized that I certainly wasn't as in demand as I used to be,
Right.
So I was just a lucky guy in terms of timing.
Right.
You know, I think my success was tied to how many record buyers there were. You know, I just got lucky. The world or the country was ready for Ted Nugent,
Yeah.
when he burst upon the scene. And so we rode that success. He built a huge fan base, and then, we did 5 platinum albums. And the last one I didn't think was that strong. Weekend Warriors.
Weekend Warriors.
Yeah. And I actually wasn't fired. I didn't quit, but I said, this is it. Because I felt that he was stuck,
Okay.
that his songwriting wasn't growing,
Okay.
right? Like Cheap Trick's songwriting did, and their participation in the recording process did as well. Um, Molly Hatchet, kind of the same thing
Okay.
as Ted. But anyway,
Uh,
yes, everybody peaks.
yeah.
Songwriters peak, artists peak, producers can peak, except for very few who will go on until they die, really.
Right.
Arif and Jerry Wexler, Tom Dowd, um, George Martin. There are still guys doing it today who are old. I think the reason that a lot of them stop is because they'd like to enjoy retirement.
Yeah.
They've made enough money so that they can, instead of saying, well, I'm going to the studio until I die.
Yeah.
You just don't want to. 52 albums, it was enough. And by 94, I'm sure I had doubts. Yeah.
Outside of I'm going to ask you about Rockstar, but what do you know what was the last album that you did outside of Rockstar?
Oh, outside of Rockstar?
Yeah.
I do not remember, but it was probably in 1997 or 8.
Okay.
And I don't know when Lita's album came out, Lita Ford. It was in the 90s. The Kicks was in the early 90s, I
But
guess.
you did Lita Ford Dangerous Curves.
Yeah.
I think that was 91.
Oh, well, I did some records after 95,
Yeah.
and I can't remember which.
Yeah.
I could look at my discography, but
Yeah.
I can't remember. Um, but Rockstar was a great way to go out,
Yes.
you know, and it was a lucky break because they said, "Gee, this is an '80s story.
Yeah.
Who was good in the '80s?" And we got all '80s musicians.
Yeah.
It
Did you get to put together that band, or how
Well,
did it come together?
I got Jeff Pilson,
Yep.
because I had met him in the Dokken project. Uh, he was very good, very cooperative, a team player, all round great guy.
Yep.
And Bud Carr, who was the music supervisor for the movie, got Jason Bonham, John's son,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Zach Wild,
Yeah.
who was Ozzy's guitar player. And I mean, they were both superb and incredible. Zach had a very, a unique style. He was a serious shredder.
Yeah.
And and they didn't get along, but that's why Jeff was there to keep them apart and working.
Okay.
And then there was who was the
Then you got Millie from Mike from Steelheart and
Mike
Jeff Scott
McKeown
Soto.
and Jeff. Yeah, they were the vocalists. Um, yeah,
I,
Jeff did a lot of background vocals, backing vocals for me earlier on. Um, it's funny. I just watched Spinal Tap 2.
okay. Oh, I
And
haven't seen the second one.
I saw C.J. Vanston in there. He was the keyboard player
Okay.
with the band.
Okay.
And I mean, he even had speaking parts. And I I used him all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I used three keyboard players after the band was out of the studio. Jay Winding was one,
Hmm.
and CJ was another, and then there was Mike Boddicker. Anyway, they were all great.
Yeah.
CJ was the last one, and I hadn't thought of him or seen him for 50 years.
Okay.
No, 35, 40 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, that was fun.
Sure. I just had Jeff Scott Soto on
Yeah.
a few weeks ago, and he was like, I used to do all these. I used to sing backgrounds for Tom Werman, and when the movie came up, he was like, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to get this Jeff Scott Soto guy."
Yeah.
So anyway, he
Uh,
was really
it's
appreciative of that.
serious. He had a serious range,
Yeah,
and Mike Mattia. I mean, Steelheart was a good band.
yeah. I
I
mean,
don't.
vocally, that guy was
Yeah.
unbelievable with what he could do with his.
Yeah. That must have been mid '90s, right? I would
Yeah.
think.
Their first album came out in 90. Their second album came out in 92, and then he was at a concert in Denver and a lighting truss fell on him and damn near killed him. In 92, he was out of the scene until like 95, and then he got Steelheart back together, and then he
That was
worked it.
when I worked with them.
Yep, short
Yeah.
few years
So
after,
that could have been one of the last albums I did.
right?
Could I don't
Okay.
know.
Okay. Um, so
We'll
so
ask we'll ask Chat.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll ask Chat. What was my last album? And they'll
Yeah.
tell.
Yeah. Now the movie came out right when 9/11 happened.
1 week before 9/11, I believe. And that was terrible because
Yes.
it was a decent movie.
Yeah.
And I loved what we did with the music. And it did well on the video.
Yep.
The mu the film did. But I thought it was pretty good. And I didn't tell you about the best line of my life, which was at the rap part. We had a kind of a rap party in the beginning of the movie so that everyone could meet and say, I do this, what do you? So we had this party, and all the crew came, and Jennifer Aniston came with Brad. And she comes into the room with Brad. I'm talking with a few people over here. She brings Brad over, and I say hi. I'm Tom Werman. I'm producing the music for the movie. And he said, "Hi, I'm Brad." And I said, "Nice to meet you, Brad. So what do you do?" My best line ever, and he didn't hear it. That was
Oh
that
my gosh.
could have been great.
I bet nobody ever asked Brad Pitt that before or since.
Right, right.
Yeah.
What do you? Anyway,
That's
that's that.
amazing. So like you late 90s, you start kind of going, okay, I need to change the scene. You do the rock star movie. And what so in the book you said this. You said the book Who Moved My Cheese inspired you.
Absolutely.
How did that book change your trajectory?
I, you know, I was whining about the fact that I wasn't getting any work really,
Yeah.
or decent work, and I was whining to my friend and also the guy who did most of my backing vocals with other people, Tom Kelly, who co-wrote Like a Virgin
Oh,
and a ton of other hits. He was my golf buddy. And so we would play golf, and I would, because I had plenty of time to play golf, and I would complain to him. And he said, I have a book for you. I have a book here. And he gave me Who Moved My Cheese. I read it in one sitting, and I got up and I said, what am I doing? It was like, remember the ad, I could have had a V8?
hmm.
I was like, what am I doing? I immediately booked a flight to the East Coast, and I mapped out 7 towns that I was going to look at to open a bed and breakfast because I just knew I could do that.
Okay.
I'm not very good at a lot of things, but I think I'm pretty good at a few things.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to get to do those few things
Hmm.
and avoid the things that I can't do.
Right.
So that was a lucky break. I looked in the 7 towns, and I finally, Lenox was the last one, Lenox, Massachusetts, in the Berkshires. And I found it right away. A fabulous place, unbelievable place. And that was in February. We were living there in July. It was that quick.
Okay.
We sold the house, we moved, we bought the new house, the farm. We bought the farm. And 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 we opened a year later.
Okay.
Our first guest was Linda Ronstadt.
No shit.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. She was playing at Tanglewood, which was 3/4 of a mile down the road.
Yeah.
Heaven on earth, Tanglewood. It'll seat 18,000, and it's the summer home of the Boston Symphony Orchestra. Anyway, they had a few, I think she was playing on July 4th weekend, and she came and stayed with us along with John Boylan, who was her original producer and sometime manager,
Okay.
and her agent. Anyway, we all went down to Tanglewood, stayed in the green room, talked with them, and anyway, that was it. I switched from rock and roll to, hosting and innkeeping.
Why that? Why not that? But how did like, hey, bed and breakfast? I'm just like,
Well, because I'm obsessed with my immediate environment.
okay.
I'm anal. I'm
Okay.
I'm picky. I'll come into a room, and the first thing I'll do is make sure that all the pictures are exactly, or I'll straighten out the fork over here at my CD. Um, I know I know what I like. We had stayed at bed and breakfasts, and
Mhm.
and I said, these are the strong points, these are the weak points. I'm going to get rid of the weak points and make everything strong. And there was no such thing as a luxury bed and breakfast. That was, a contradiction in terms,
Mhm.
because you'd have a china, a wash basin, and a radio
Yeah.
in your room. So we made it all suites. We had big TVs
Yeah.
and Bose wave radios, which were all the rage in 2000.
Yeah.
Um, you know, those Mitsubishi wall air conditioners and
Yeah.
and fabulous mattresses and frette linens and yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Sitting room, bedroom, bath, and a killer breakfast. We
Yeah.
were we were good. It took us a couple of years, and then we really became well known,
Okay.
and we got a couple of awards, and
Well,
we were off. I just knew I could do it, so
yeah.
I did it, and that was it. I had 2 careers that were easy for me. They were hard work,
Yeah.
but they came rather naturally, I think.
How long did you do the bed and breakfast for?
20 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just kind of it just got to the point where you were like, time to retire.
Yeah,
Sure.
because I then I could
Yeah.
because I sold my royalties. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a good way to enter uh, retirement. I don't know if we talked about it, but retirement is for me is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Really fabulous
Yeah.
part of time of my life.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it would be anywhere anything like this. And I know people out here who retired, but they got bored and they went back to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't get it. Anyway, yeah, this is it. I'm very happy and
So what do you do for like now when you get to do what do you want? What are those things that you do now?
well, for a while I wrote the book,
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
Uh, when it's seasonal, I play golf.
Hmm.
I love golf.
Hmm.
I read. I nap guiltlessly, and mainly we are surrounded by woods here on three sides, and I work outside
Hmm.
2, 3 hours a day every day I can,
Wow.
and occasionally I go to the gym,
Sure.
um, and a walk now and then. My wife loves to walk,
Hmm.
and it's great. I basically I'm a homebody. I hang around the house and I work on things.
Yeah.
And I never get up and say, huh, I have no idea what I'm going to do today. There's always something for me to do. And there's so much paperwork involved, even though you're retired.
Yeah.
There's some bureaucratic stuff that you have to take care of to run your life.
Yeah.
And you really start to wonder, how did I have time for a job?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know. So that's it. I keep pretty busy and then we travel.
Yeah.
My son is works for Warner Records in LA and we go to see him and we stay in LA and see all our old friends.
Hmm.
Then maybe we'll go to someplace warm because
Yeah.
it's a long winter here,
Yeah.
you know. Uh, so we take trips now and then,
Yeah.
and that's good. I love it's fun going away, and
Sure.
it's really fun coming home.
Hmm.
So that's what I do. It's a full life.
Over the years of the bed and breakfast, were there ever people in the music business who were like, "Hey Tom, you want to come back and give it one more shot? I got a band for you."
Yeah, in the beginning, yeah, in the beginning of my retirement,
Yep.
yes. Would you do this? Would you do? I did one single. A guy sent me one single
Hmm.
he was from, I think, North Carolina.
Hmm.
It was a novelty record, and it was really brilliant. So I went down there and I financed it myself, and I worked with him and produced this single, and I think it's great, but there just wasn't any place for it.
Who,
It
can you
it
remember who
made
it
fun
was?
of it was kind of a s- a- it made fun of vegetarians.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it was called Chocolate Cake.
Okay.
It was about this kid whose mother made him, like vegetable salads and
Yeah.
soybeans and to take to school. And he said, I want a steak. I want chocolate cake. I want a strawberry milkshake. Anyway, it was very well done. We enjoyed it, but we didn't do anything with it. The guy who wrote it couldn't get a deal for it.
Okay. In your book, you said this. In the past, producers listened to the music. Now they look at the music on the screen. What do
Yeah.
you feel about music or the music scene now?
Well, I admit to not seeking out new music.
Yep.
Um, I still listen to, music from the 60s, 70s, and 80s mostly.
Mhm.
And I never tire of it. Uh, a young friend of ours, the son of a friend of ours, gave me. I was complaining about modern music, and he said, "Wait, I have some stuff that you'll like." And he gave me 5 songs, and they were very good, really good, and modern, and by people I'd never heard of. And
Mhm.
I said, "Boy, these are good." And I put them on my phone, and I took them to the gym, and I played them in my play. I have a 4-hour playlist that I of all the songs that I really like, and I use them in the gym, and they inspire me. And
Mhm.
I used these, and they did inspire me for a few weeks,
Mhm.
and then for some reason it just wore out because everything was perfect.
Yeah.
The record didn't breathe, And as I said in the book, you get one good sounding snare hit, and then you make it every snare hit.
Yeah.
That doesn't work for me. I think that there's something about, mistakes
Mhm.
and just a human feel
Mhm.
in music. It can't be perfect. And
Mhm.
that's one thing I'm not crazy about is the perfection and the roboticism and the sampling, repetition, repetition, repetition. Some of it, sometimes it really works. It's fun.
Mhm.
Uh, Most of the time it isn't. And and I think that mostly the female singers, they just go, they do, crazy circles in the stratosphere. And then how many notes can I possibly hit in this one, bar?
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know. I don't like it that much. I know there's good music out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I look to my son for recommendations somehow. He has a lot to do with Dijon. This
Okay.
guy, he's very big now, and he got big through that Canadian kid. Um,
Bieber?
big, yeah, Justin Bieber.
Justin Bieber? Okay.
Uh, he did something with his most recent album that it got
Okay.
a lot of acclaim.
Sure.
Anyway, he's a big star now, and we're going to Boston with my son to see him.
Okay.
But uh,
Did you
you
ever try to dissuade your son from being in the music business?
no,
Okay.
no, he's a major record trader and collector.
Okay.
He'll go into a record store and walk out with a couple of records for 12, $15 each and sell them for 500. And not every time, but
Right.
he could actually live
Yeah.
perhaps on just selling records, buying and selling records. There
Right.
are a lot of overseas people who who will buy records that you and I could never hear of.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like like the choir from Harlem Boys High School, so something like that,
Yeah.
and people know. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I have shrink wrap catalogs from the 60s
Yeah.
and the 70s. And at some point, I said, Dan, look at what I've got. I got the Beatles catalog, the Stones, the Who, Zeppelin. And he started looking through them, and I thought they were, massively valuable. He said, Dad, these are maybe 40, $50 each. Oh, why? He said, well, you see this, this little lock groove number on the record or whatever. He said, this is, first of all, it's stereo,
Okay.
not good. And it's not first edition, first pressing.
Okay.
He said there are certain things you have to look for.
Right.
It's
Right.
like books. It's like a book, I guess,
Yeah. Yeah.
first edition.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, he knows about all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Wow. Okay.
And he loves music, and it's been he's I don't know what he's going to do when he gets old.
Yeah.
He's like 42 now or 43,
Sure.
you know, but yeah, I would never try to dissuade him from going in, from being in music. I don't think he would enjoy anything else
Yeah.
at this point.
Right. And I was kind of the same way. I was doing all this other stuff, but music was always where my heart was, and
Yeah,
now I do this, and so
yeah, this is good. You
yeah.
do it well.
Thank you. I really do appreciate. I appreciate so much that you would come back a second day to finish this up. Um, I know we talked about you have your website, tomwerman.com. I'm going to make sure the purchase link for this.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I don't go to it. I don't
Oh,
tend to it,
okay.
you know, but I know it's there.
Yeah.
I think it's just for the book.
Okay. And to reach out and maybe contact you about things like that. So
Yeah,
so okay.
yeah, sure. I still get a lot of communication from readers.
I'm sure. I'm
Yeah.
sure. But I will have the purchase link for the book and all that will be in the description. Tom Werman, you have such an amazing career. You've done so many of my favorite bands and albums.
Thank you.
It is actually amazing how many of my favorite albums you worked on. So thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure, really, and thank you for your interest and your support.
Absolutely. Hey, maybe we'll do a part 3 somewhere down the road.
I'm here.
Okay. All right. Thanks again, Tom. You take care.